the American Society after 20 years of him putting surveying all of the buildings there. Well, when Hugh Holliston Jr. started to survey the buildings at that ancient city, he found something very bizarre. He found that all the buildings there seems to, like the large buildings, the temples and such, seems to be in the exact appropriate place to describe all the orbits of our solar system, with the sun pyramid, the moon pyramid, and everything. He found all the orbits, including Pluto and Neptune. Now, Pluto and Neptune, Neptune, I think it was late 1800s. Pluto was discovered by us early 1900s, 1920-something, by the observatory in Arizona there, in Flagstaff, Arizona. So how come these people thousands of years ago had these orbitals? Not only did they know these planets were there, but it had the appropriate placement to generate their orbits. Those are extremely difficult things to figure out, especially if you can't see it. And so that blew his mind. And he started to continue to investigate, and he found that there was some incredible mathematical recurrence in all of the measurements that he was taking. And that recurrence, these mathematics that kept on creeping up, were always the same. And he figured out that they were pointing out to the mathematics of a sphere and a tetrahedron embedded in it. And that's why he put that graphic in his paper, saying that if these people were trying to communicate something to us, they were trying to tell us about a sphere and a tetrahedron. He didn't notice, though, that even that city, right beside Mexico City, that ancient city, is exactly at 19.47 latitude on the Earth as well. So not only does it have the mathematics of a tetrahedron in a sphere in all of its layouts, but as well it is placed on the Earth exactly where a tetrahedron would intersect a sphere.
What's the third point?
Well, this is a grand circle, all around the Earth. So depending on where you put this point, these other points will move, right? But if you put this point at the big island of Hawaii, then Mexico City is somewhere in the middle here, in between these 2 points. This one is near the coast of Africa, I believe, and then this one is India. The Daikini temples in India. And so I was amazed that this engineer had come up with this. And I was confirming, that imagine that there is a fundamental structure to the vacuum, that there is a fundamental structure to reality. You would expect that throughout the ages, we would have come up with it, because it would be inherent in us. It would be oozing out of us. So I thought, maybe they came up with this then. But I knew there was something wrong, because a tetrahedron on its own is not in equilibrium. And I knew the vacuum geometry had to be in perfect equilibrium. So I had to find something else. Well, at the end of his essay, Hugh Holliston Jr. mentioned a very important thing: the isotropic vector metric. from Buckminster Fuller. He said that the mathematical constant that he got from his surveying of that ancient city pointed out to the square root of 9/8, which is the mathematical constant for an isotropic vector metric generated by Buckminster Fuller. Bucky thought that this metric was the fundamental mathematical blueprint of the universe. Well, Bucky was quite eccentric. However, many of the things that Bucky came up with were later confirmed. So he's getting more and more acceptance of his work, although he's not around to appreciate it anymore. But the blueprint of the universe, he thought, was the isotropic vector metric. What is this thing? It's 10 tetrahedron on the bottom. This is called a 4-frequency isotropic vector metric. So 10 tetrahedrons on the bottom, 3 in the middle. 6 in the middle, 3 on top, and then 1, making a huge tetrahedron on its own. Can everybody see this? So there's actually 20 tetrahedrons in an isotropic vector metric. And if you take only one face of the isotropic vector metric, right, just a plane of it, then you have 4 faces on the bottom, 3 faces on the second level, 2 faces on the third level, and 1 face on top. Everybody sees this? Okay. Well, when I found the isotropic vector metric, I thought, well, I'm interested about negative space. So let me take off the tetrahedrons and see what's in between them. So I did that, and when I did that, I realized what was in between the tetrahedrons. They're octahedrons. Do I have a little octahedron somewhere? Oh, I know. I guess it got destroyed. The glue, while I was traveling, melted with this 108-degree heat we've been having. So I lost some of my models. But an octahedron is a pyramid with another one below it. Emphasis on the word pyramid. So I was happy to find that the pyramidal geometry was present between the tetrahedrons. Can everybody see how an octahedron is 2 pyramids base to base? If this is one point of the pyramid, then the base is here, and it's a square base. It looks rectangular because it's in perspective. And the other point is here, right? 2 pyramids base to base. There is a bunch of them together, but when I did this, I realized there was something weird. There was something weird in the middle of the metric, because the metric is called isotropic. So you would expect that it would be always in balance, that it would always be in symmetry. But there was this symmetry in the middle. I found 4 reverse tetrahedrons pointing down and rotated 180 degrees. And they didn't belong to the octahedron, and they didn't belong to the tetrahedrons that made up the outside or the metric. So there was a bunch of these, there was 4 tetrahedrons completely out of place, creating a symmetry in the middle of symmetry. Now I knew this had to be incomplete, because if this was the fundamental structure of the vacuum, it had to be isotropic and symmetric so that you would have perfect equilibrium. Oh, there's an octahedron. Thank you. Ooh, nice. Q-tips. Thank you. Appreciate. Q-tips with what? Honey?
Rubber cement.
Rubber cement. Here's an octahedron. And so when, that wouldn't melt as well. Oh, that's good. Because I used to do it with marshmallows, but then people would grab the marshmallows and eat them. And I lose my mouth. But anyway, so the isotropic vector metric had to be modified. I didn't know how. One thing I was sure of is that the universe is polarized, so that it had to be two. Okay? Now, if you have a polarized universe, and you have two isotropic vector metrics, and they're mirroring each other, you have a problem. Because the two mirroring each other, base to base, don't make a sphere. Remember, fundamental axiom, the universe is generating spheres, right? So you don't have a sphere, you have an egg. And so now I had the chicken and an egg problem, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do with this? I didn't know what to do, but I knew it had to be two isotropic vector metrics. I didn't know what to do with these other spaces, these other tetrahedrons in the middle, neither. And you got to realize that at that point in my evolution now, I'm finishing my ski career. I got a bunch of universal 2x4s behind the head, forcing me out, telling me you got to do this full time. You ain't gonna do this while teaching skiing. And this point, I'm still doing all this without a computer. So I'm rendering these geometries in my head, and I'm trying to figure out how they fit together. Okay, I found the octahedrons in the middle and all this, and then I'm going, okay, wait a minute, I gotta make this become a sphere. But I don't want to distort the geometry of the isotropic vector metric. It has to be tetrahedrons. So I'm like getting all frustrated about it. And I'm, okay, well finally I decided, okay, and I pushed one into the other. And I, generated this in my brain. I was pushing one into the other and trying to figure out where the tetrahedrons would fall. And then that's when I realized what had happened. When you push one isotropic vector metric into the other so that you generate a perfect sphere, then the central geometry is a vector equilibrium, the only geometry in full equilibrium in all vectorial possibility. And there is no distortion because those four tetrahedrons that were in the isotropic vector metrics alone were there to accept the reverse one, so that the one isotropic vector metric was missing its better half. And when the two came together, it created equilibrium. I still get the chills from that time when I discovered this. It was like, oh my God, this is beautifully, metaphorically, and beautiful for what I'm trying to achieve. The geometry of equilibrium, the geometry of the vacuum. And I could see how the male and the females coming together generates a new point of center, a new being. Boy, that, at that point,